What's up, guys? You're watching Fight Feed. My name is Jake. I am the host of Fight Feed. Today I'm going to be going through my UFC Fight Night picks for the upcoming fight night of Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. I think that's how you say his name. This fight night takes place this Saturday on March 2nd. On your left, you are going to see the full list of the fights that are happening this Saturday, and I'm going to go ahead and dive in, give you my perspective on which fighter I feel is going to win on Saturday. Starting off with the first fight of the card, lightweight bout, it's Abdul Karim Al Sawadi versus Loic Razabov. If only Abdul was Kareem Abdul, that'd be way cooler. Anyways, this is a lightweight bout, like I said, and I don't know much about Abdul, so in this one, I've just got to go with the experience edge. I've seen Loic Razabov fight. He's got a pretty good game all around. And given that I just don't know much about Abdul, I feel like Loic probably has the edge here. Just, Loic's not super old either. I mean, he's like 33 years old, turning 34 this year. So he's kind of in that age range where he's kind of coming into his prime, or just at the peak of his prime, if you will. Abdul, it looks like he's like 28 years old. So overall, I just feel like Loic's going to have that experience edge. But like I said, this could be wrong. We're going to go ahead and circle them, though. Jumping into the next fight is a bantamweight bout. We've got Vincius Oliveira versus Yanis Gamori. So in this fight, I feel like all things are pushing me to say Yanis Gamori. Now, for whatever reason, on this one, I'm going to go on the opposite choice of that. And the reason being that I don't know this for certain, but Vincius Oliveira, he's got the Oliveira last name. I know that he's from Brazil, and I know that Oliveira is not necessarily a super unique name in Brazil, but I feel like Vincius has the potential to be somehow related to Charles Oliveira. Also knowing that Charles Oliveira has a strong stable of fighters that he's helping train in his camp. I feel like if that is the case for Vincius Oliveira, that would be a huge edge for him in terms of having that guidance in his corner. This is all based on speculation. I haven't done any deep research into this. So with that, I'm going to choose Vincius Oliveira just because I feel like Brazilian fighters are generally very skilled, just knowing, obviously what we know about Brazil and all of the monsters that have come from Brazil. So I'm going to choose him, but I do think that this is based on speculation. So what I would say is, obviously I didn't do it for this video, but moving forward, as I get more comfortable with these, I'll be doing a lot more research. I do think that if you're kind of looking at these picks for potential betting, I would say maybe do a little bit more research into Vincius, see if he is in fact related to Charles Oliveira, if he does have that. But I definitely think that this one could be a toss-up. I haven't seen either of the guys really fight too much. Yanis Gamori only has, I think, 1 or 2 fights in the UFC. So definitely look into that one. Okay, jumping into our next fight. It is a middleweight bout. We've got Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. Both these guys have a couple fights, I think, in the UFC. My overall thought process on this one is I want to go with Christian Leroy Duncan, mainly just because I've seen Claudio Ribeiro, and Claudio Ribeiro is one of those fighters who has that one-hitter quitter power. He can knock anybody out on the feet. But what I've noticed, in his last fight, there are some holes in his defense at times, and obviously he had a pretty devastating KO last time he was in the octagon from Roman Kopylov. So what I would say here is that I'm leaning towards Christian Leroy Duncan, just given that Christian he's a very unique style that I don't know how Claudio Ribeiro will deal with that. Now, I'm going to circle Christian, but I'm going to call out that, once again, Claudio has that one-hitter quitter. I watched him on Contender Series. He has the ability to put anybody out. So there's definitely a fat chance there that he gets a KO. But if Christian Leroy Duncan is able to really deploy his unique style and stay away from that power, he's definitely going to get the win, in my opinion. Okay, next one. It is a bantamweight bout, and it's Ayman Zahabi versus Javid Basharat. I can very convincingly circle Javid Basharat. Javid Basharat has looked fantastic in pretty much all of the bouts that he's been in. And what I've liked about him too is that even given that he has he's kind of built his name up in terms of his star power, he doesn't want to take any easy fights, and I feel like he's been in a couple wars and shown that he has the grit to go the full distance. And I feel like as the fight goes on, he just ends up drowning every opponent that he's fighting, showing just immense cardio and skill set just all over, whether it's in the striking, whether it's on the ground. So I definitely feel he is going to win this fight. He's looked great, like I said, and I like that he trains out of Team Couture, I believe. So I just think that he has a lot of things in his court that will help him get this win. On to our next one, we have Joel Alvarez versus Ludovic Klein. I am choosing Joel Alvarez for this one. Now, this one is actually kind of a hard pick because I think both fighters are pretty unique in their styles and very skilled. I know Ludovic Klein has looked good. The reason I'm choosing Joel Alvarez, there's a few reasons, right? So just to give you perspective, he is fighting at 155 pounds, but he's 6'3". I'm 6'4". I'm not trying to gas up my height here, but I'm 6'4", 210, maybe 215. Been kind of a fat ass lately. So that is what's nuts to me. So like a lot of people could look at this differently, right? You could look at it and say, well, he's 6'3", 100. He's like 60 pounds lighter than I am, which is a little bit scary, right? Like I can't even imagine being that thin at this point in my life. I think when I was 17 years old, senior in high school, I was probably his size, maybe a little bit lighter actually. But I'm gonna put this out there. I was too thin. Like I was skinny. It was bad. So that could be one of two things, right? That could be like, okay, does he cut too much weight? And does that go against him? Well, my thought process on this is that it doesn't, because in his previous bouts, he's looked very good and he's able to find that knockout, right? Because I think he's got that range on the feet where there's such a disadvantage to the opponent because he is so much bigger and so much taller. But the other thing that helps him a lot is I believe he is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And so because of that, when things go to the ground, he has that length in his body where he is just able to manipulate and get his opponents in different grappling situations where he has the potential to submit them. One other thing that is making me lean towards Joel Alvarez, which could be a mistake as well, is his birthday, based on my research, is actually on Saturday. So that could be like, hey, maybe he isn't focused, right? Maybe he's thinking about his birthday, celebrating, whatnot. Or maybe he's one of these psycho fighters, which I feel like most fighters are, that it's like they want to give themselves that win for their birthday. So, and a lot of times there's extra motivation there to get the win on their birthday. I've definitely seen quite a few fight cards where it's a fighter's birthday or it's like their birthday's the next day and they end up having a killer performance. So I'm feeling like just this Saturday, everything, all the cards are in Joel Alvarez's court to win this. So I'm going to circle him, even though I'm not going to circle him again. I already did like 5 minutes ago. Moving on now to the main card of the fight night. We've got a flyweight bout, Matt Schnell versus Steve Erceg. Now, a lot of folks will probably think I'm crazy. I'm going Matt Schnell on this one. And the reason I'm going Matt Schnell is just I feel like Matt Schnell has time and time again shown that he is war capable. Like obviously, any fighter can get finished on any night. But I feel like in a lot of the fights I've seen him in, it's always a dog fight, and Matt Schnell has the dog in him. And I feel that Steve Erceg, although I believe he's undefeated or he has very minimal losses, he's still very green in his career in terms of the UFC. And I feel like Matt Schnell is a perfect test for him in terms of moving up the ladder. Now with that, I could be very wrong here because Matt Schnell has had, while he's a seasoned veteran at this point, one could argue that potentially Steve Erceg might be too much for him. And Steve Erceg really hasn't had many losses, and so he's going to be coming in with that confidence. once again, I just think Matt Schnell has surprised me time and time again when I've seen him fight, especially when I've seen him fight some up and comers. He's either looked really good against them, even if he didn't get the win, or he's beat them. So I feel like Matt Schnell has the ability to get this one done, and he's got experience on his side. This next fight is a bantamweight bout, and this is Umar Nurmagomedov. I am going to go Umar. I don't know much about Bezkat Al-Makan. I don't know how you say his last name, but Umar Nurmagomedov has just been shocking to me. Like, it's nuts to see a guy, I think people think he's related to Khabib. I have no idea if he is or not, because like Makhachev is Khabib's cousin, and then like other Nurmagomedovs they're not even associated. So who the hell knows? At this point, all I'm saying is he's from Russia, so he's got that wrestling base. But in addition to that wrestling base, his striking and kickboxing have looked amazing, and I think he's also mixed in a lot of Muay Thai. I do know he's coming off a shoulder injury, but I feel like he is hungry and he's young. He's ready to go and continue his claiming his stake for the title, or moving up the chain to get to the title. So, in my opinion, I think Umar is going to get the win. This next one is a middleweight bout. We've got Eric Anders versus Jamie Pickett. I like both these fighters. Unfortunately, Jamie Pickett's been the victim of quite a few losses lately. It doesn't necessarily mean anything in MMA because you can always find the win. But in my opinion, I feel like Eric Anders is going to find the win here. Jamie Pickett's a great fighter, and I just feel like I've seen him in too many fights where he's either doing well or he's just kind of getting beat up on, and I just don't trust that he's going to be able to get the win here against Eric Anders. Now, I could be wrong, but I mean, in the last few fights, I've just seen Jamie Pickett submitted or overpowered on the ground. I feel like Eric Anders has power, but he also has that wrestling edge too, so I feel like he is going to get the win on Saturday. The next fight is a flyweight bout. We've got Alex Perez versus Muhammad Mokaev. I feel Muhammad Mokaev is going to get the win. He's been looking amazing. One thing that really surprised me about Muhammad Mokaev, I think in his last fight, it was not anything to brag about, if you will. I feel like his last performance was not that great. But what's shocked me about him is he's that guy that he talks the talk and he walks the walk, right? He goes out there and he says what he says, but in his one fight, he had that excruciating knee bar put against him, and he was able to somehow fight through that and still get the W, and I think he ended up submitting that opponent in the last round. So to me, that is not only shocking and surprising, because sometimes you get these up-and-coming contenders who they talk the talk, and then when it comes time that they fight someone who is kind of on their level or better, they don't walk the walk. But in this case, Muhammad Mokaev showed that he has that grit. Now, what's going to be interesting is, obviously, this is flyweight. I think in flyweight, what's interesting is there's never really you don't often see one fighter who has just a dominant grappling that cannot be dealt with or handled. Similar to what we've seen in the past with like a Khabib. I feel like the skill set in terms of grappling and just overall speed and movement is pretty level in flyweight. Now, obviously, there's a lot of fighters that are just better than other fighters, but I think that what will be interesting here is Alex Perez has a wrestling base. He has a lot of experience, so it'll be interesting to see how the two of these guys handle that with one another. But I do think that Muhammad Mokaev will come out on top with the W. The next fight here on our list is the light heavyweight bout, which is the co-main event of Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. This one is kind of a difficult one. I have to say, from a betting standpoint, Tyson Pedro at a plus 235 is kind of a steal. Vitor Petrino is undefeated, right? So he has looked really good. The thing about Vitor Petrino is similar to his Brazilian brother on the earlier card, but Vitor Petrino, I think, what makes me lean towards Vitor in this fight is, if I'm looking at Tyson Pedro, I think he's a great fighter. He has a great skill set. He also fights out of City Kickboxing. I'm pretty sure his sister is married to Tai Tuivasa. So he has a lot of other fighters that he's working with and able to build and grow from. But the one thing that worries me in this fight for Tyson Pedro is that I feel like when he's fought other fighters lately, Like, for instance, Modestas Bukauskas. Modestas was coming into the UFC on short notice. He was already signed. He was released. He went back onto some of the smaller fighting promotions, and he like had a run. He got signed by the UFC late notice for Australia. He comes in and he beats Tyson Pedro on short notice. And what I noticed in that fight is Bukauskas took the fight to him, right? Like he was in his face the whole time. And I feel like once Tyson Pedro was hit with some strong shots, he shied away from the fight. I'm not saying that he was like afraid, but I think that he was gun shy. And so what worries me in a fight like this for him is that if he's gun shy against Vitor Petrino, I think Vitor Petrino is going to kind of, walk him around the cage and just kind of do what he wants. I think Tyson Pedro has the ability to stay away from that knockout power, but knowing that Vitor has that knockout power may be the downfall for Tyson Pedro. Now, on the flip side, Vitor Petrino has not lost yet. And I think Tyson Pedro, like I said, is a very skilled fighter. He has a lot of references in his camp to go off of where he could very likely find the win against Vitor Petrino. So what I would say here, I'm gonna say Vitor Petrino can get this W, right? I think he has that knockout power, that equalizer. But what I will say is that if you are looking at betting on this fight, Tyson Pedro at a plus 235 is pretty damn good. So if you're feeling a little risky, you could go with him. Finally, on the last fight of the card, we got Jairzinho. You got to say it like John Anik whenever he fucking says that guy's name. It's hilarious. It also reminds me of Jardinera, so it makes me want a beef sandwich. That's why I'm 215. But this is a heavyweight bout. We've got Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Unfortunately, I can't go with Biggie Boy in this fight. I got to go with Shamil Gaziev. I feel like when I've seen Shamil fight, he's not only a heavyweight, but knowing that he, I think, played like professional volleyball or could have played, he has an athleticism that he brings to the cage as a heavyweight that is somewhat unseen and unnoticed in a lot of these heavyweight fighters. He's not, I don't think, at the level of like a Tom Aspinall in terms of movement speed and things like that, but I feel like he does have, for his size, he has a lot of speed, and it's interesting how he's able to close the distance in the cage. Obviously, he's 6'4", and he's a heavyweight, so it's like it's not that hard for him to close the distance, but the way that he's able to move around the cage, and also the power that he has in his hands, I think that he is definitely going to edge this one out. Given that Jairzinho has that equalizer, right? He has, I think, 7 KOs. We saw what he did with Overeem. He was getting outclassed the entire fight, and then with like 10 seconds to go, he knocks Overeem's lip off. So I feel like this is another fight where it's a hard guess because there is that great equalizer of power. But I think that Shamil is going to really just outclass Jairzinho in terms of his ability to move around the octagon and his speed. Now, he could be caught by Jairzinho, but I feel like Shamil is just going to drown him in terms of just he's going to lay it on him. Like if we watched Shamil's previous fight, he was just laying it on the guy, like just landing a ton of different shots and trying to get him out of there from the get-go. And I feel like Jairzinho, he's usually a slow starter and he doesn't usually get going. Like I feel like he just doesn't ever really get going. I feel like he just has that knockout power where if he connects, you're done. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. But I definitely think Shamil is going to get the win. And there you guys have it. Those are my picks for this upcoming fight night. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like the video below if you liked it. Leave a comment below if you feel that I got any of these picks wrong or if you just blatantly disagree. Maybe if you feel like the same way, maybe if you agree with me, you can also comment and let me know. Definitely appreciate any comments I can get, and looking forward to seeing you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching.